Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Breaking Into Cinema, the show where we discuss movies, new and old, that you may not have seen or analyzed before. I'm Kevin.
Is looking at you, kid.
Lau.
And I'm Tiffany.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Oh.
I love that so much. And I'm Cassie.
Boy, I hate being right all the time.
Ballschmidt.
This is the first time.
Tiffany won this one.
Man, I have no idea what it is, but I will say it. I think this is the first time where I actually know where both movies are from. Both
Hey.
quotes.
Nice.
Guys, I realized Tiffany was quoting Juno a lot. I was like, oh man, I haven't seen Juno yet. I should probably do that.
You should probably do that. We'll do a watch party.
Sounds good.
But
we're not talking about Juno today. We're talking about something very different from Juno. We're talking about film noir. Ooh. Specifically the history of film noir and what are some of the identifiers of film noir. In the last episode, we talked about Brick, a movie that showed the clear distinction of postmodernism, where it's film noir, but in a modern day setting and in high school. But where did film noir come from? Join us as we find out. So first, we want to start with some identifiers of film noir. What makes film noir film noir? And Cassie, do you want to kick us off?
yeah, film noir definitely came in like the 40s and the 50s. So most of it is all black and white and often have a very classic femme fatale.
Ooh, yeah. And then, as we saw in Brick, there was a femme fatale in it too. She was the villain all along.
All along. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, and so some other identifiers we have, like an urban location, like the streets of Chicago or Los Angeles, mostly. In dark, oppressive lighting, very very contrasty. And Tiffany, any identifiers from you?
Yeah, I've always been obsessed with like Dutch angles or the frame that looks askew, and also like the transatlantic accent. Like people like it's in a lot of movies back from like the 40s and stuff, but like it is a very very heavy signifier of film noir, at least to me.
Where did the drugs go?
Where did they go? It's like they kind of sound a little English, they kind of sound a little East Coast, like you can't figure it out, but they all sound like this, like radio, like, but at the same time, they sound very mysterious and scary too. So
tell me where they went. You'll never see the light of day again.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I love this attempt to like make a new accent. I think it's such a funny and interesting concept that like we want something that breaches the masses. So let's make something that's completely different from what the masses speak.
Mm-hmm. Let's not do one specific dialect. Let's just combine and just flow a new one.
It's like it's like it kind of made me think of Fargo a little bit, but it's more like Fargo accent is a real accent, but it sounds so ridiculous. You're not like, oh, this is like, you think it's fake until you actually hear someone from like North Dakota say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I love a lot of the things that you brought, Kevin, though. Like, I love that dark and oppressive lighting because I think that the lighting is so iconic in film noir. When you think of the like light coming in through the blinds, like so dramatically cutting across their faces and like standing in the dark, creepy alleyway and then stepping into the light. Like it's very, very iconic for film noir, but has definitely breached into like just general film language and film as a whole.
Right. I mean, like, Go ahead, Tiffany.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say, I always like in film noir movies where like people, like you see a shadow coming like through the doorway and it's kind of horror, but at the same time it's not. So like film noir and horror films have like shared that sort of little tidbit.
Yeah.
Right. everything about film noir is just like, let's take it to the most extra place we can possibly take it. Like drama to the extreme, which I'm definitely here for.
And then like, so with film noir, to get that stark contrasting lighting, like instead of using a fill light or like a bounce fill, which is like a white, something white or reflective, and then it's bounced to kind of fill in like the subject. They use like a negative fill a lot of the times, if they even like do anything. It's usually like a harsh key light, and that's about it. So it's very
silhouettes.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of minimal lighting, so it could be done on a budget. But they made it work. They made a whole style about it, and it wasn't like one person was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna make this new thing called film noir." It's kind of like a series of filmmakers experimented on this one visual style, and it caught on fast, and just everyone started doing it because it was cheap to do, and. And then like it just, and eventually like after a while it just suddenly it got coined the term noir, which translates to black film. But yeah, have you guys seen any films classified as film noir? I myself have seen some Hitchcock films. Vertigo seems to be the most noir of Hitchcock's work, which feels like the embodiment of noir, either purposeful or not. There's a lot of discussion whether or not Hitchcock movies actually count as noir. Some of his movies are black and white. Psycho might not count as noir, but Rebecca most likely does.
I love Rebecca.
Yeah. I haven't seen the remake yet, but I hear it's not that great.
I haven't either. I don't know if I want to, but
Vertigo is in color, but it has a lot of like the tropes of noir. It has the femme fatale. It has like very complex plot. It's got, a lot of something stolen, a lot of heavy smoking and drinking, has an urban location. It's really interesting. And then also I've read some hardboiled detective fiction like The Big Sleep, but I've only watched clips of the films. I've never actually seen like The Maltese Falcon yet, but one day I will.
One day.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah, Maltese Falcon is really great. And it's definitely interesting because I feel like film noir is, especially with like film historians and people who are film critics, there's always the debate of like, is film noir a style or is it an actual genre?
Yeah.
There's definitely a combination of like, how much does the style influence so much that it does become a genre, or how much does the genre influence the style that people end up shooting in? It's kind of an interesting conversation, but definitely the Maltese Falcon I feel like is just the noiriest of the noir.
Right, because a noir can be a thriller, it can be a drama, it can be just standard mystery, because I think mystery is a genre. Noir can be a comedy, or it could be brick, which I'm not really sure how to classify that genre wise.
Yeah, I mean brick is
it's an experience.
I don't even want to call it parody, but I feel like what we touched on.
It's a modern interpretation
with
some noir,
with some dissection of film noir.
Yes.
Right. It's commentary on film noir is maybe the best way to describe it. Less parody and more commentary on film noir.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
What about you, Tiffany? Have you seen any of the film noir?
I've seen a couple, seen one or two, maybe. I am a big Double Indemnity fan since I was a kid. Always liked that movie. It's one of the I think it's on like the top, one of the top film noirs on a lot of people's lists.
I think so. According to this graphic on No Film School, which we'll link in the description, it is out of the 100 film noir films they analyze, it is the most noir film because it hits all the classifications.
It's really heavy, yeah. And then they kind of like remade it a little bit in 1981. It was called Body Heat, and Ted Danson's in it, and it's I have a lot of opinions about it, but it's very interesting to see something made in 1944 and then the same sort of concept made in 1981. And Body Heat, they really, really try with the noir, but it's just not the same. They try to just make it a straight drama, and it just doesn't work.
It's in color now. They ruined it.
And it's the color would be fine if they, stuck to like the true spirit of the first one. They didn't really do that, but I commend them for trying.
Is it like the Psycho remake where it's like shot for shot redone,
no,
but like it looks terrible?
It's kind of its own. Body Heat's kind of its own thing. It's not quite that. However, I will say that 1998 Psycho remake was probably one of the first horror movies that I ever saw, because it came out when I was like 3, and my cousin had it on the TV. It was right around the time it came out, and I think he rented the VHS or something. And all I remember is the blood in the shower, because it's in color. You can see it. You can't see it in the 61. So I just remember
that's not chocolate syrup.
I just remember her standing, like the shot of her feet as the blood like pools down the drain, and I did not shower for 5 years.
Oof.
I did not shower until I took baths. Of course, I bathed. But I would not take a shower for a long time because of that one viewing of the 98 Psycho.
Just sue your cousin for like all the water you wasted by taking a bath instead of showering.
Yep. But yeah, Body Heat's not really. Body Heat kind of just does its own thing. You don't even like remember that it's in a Double Indemnity like spiritual like remake. Like you just kind of forget about it.
Well, I mean,
you're just like, oh, I forgot that that's where this came from, but whatever.
I guess, yeah, if it was intentionally like, this is a remake of Double Indemnity and you can't recognize it, then that's a problem. One of
my old professors in college would really be upset with me if he heard me talking crap about Body Heat.
Well,
he loves that movie, and I'm like, dude, no.
What's he gonna do? Cancel the
Children
podcast?
Grow up to become adults who have to like learn learn what they like, and they become their own humans who like what they like.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Spread your wings and you fly away.
Exactly. He can't cancel the podcast. I own this.
I'm going to send this to him when it's done. Like, here you go.
Yes, extra views.
Yeah.
Accidentally shares it with all the students. Be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we want to talk about how did film noir start? We kind of hinted at it a little bit, but now we're going to go in depth. So film noir, which, like I said, translates from French to black film, is a cinematic term used primarily to describe stylish Hollywood crime dramas, particularly those that emphasize cynical attitudes and sexual motivations. Started around roughly the 1930s, but was really popular in the 1940s and the 1950s, where they were generally regarded as a classic period of American film noir.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I said, it wasn't like it's like we're gonna like it's not like a studio system was like, oh, we're gonna make this new style and it's gonna be great. It's more like it started off with some independent stuff, especially not even in America. It started with I want to say in Germany, and then if I remember correctly, I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. It is. So, but it started in Germany with Fritz Lang's M. It kind of brought that film noir style with before it actually even happened. But then, people started experimenting with it in America. They realized how much cheaper it was because you needed less lights, and you didn't even need as many actors as well to make a film noir interesting. So it is, and you can shoot it all in black and white instead of the new color film that's so expensive. So it just kind of caught on real fast, and they just started pumping these out, and they were selling like hotcakes.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, if it sells, then why not make more of it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tiffany, what are your notes?
Yeah. The term film noir was coined by a Italian-French film critic named Nino Frank in 1946, and it was basically kind of just play on words, I guess, about how dark the themes and the look of the film actually was. So we just saw film noir. But from what I understand, they were film noirs generally were considered melodramas for a long time. Like Kevin said, like it wasn't just like this random genre or random style that they all just started one day and that's just what it was called from day one. They were considered melodramas until about the 70s, especially here in America. And then historians and people in the industry generally started calling them noirs like later on. And then it like kind of became its own thing. But for a while, it was just it wasn't as like coined or like in its own little pocket of film as we think of it today. It was just they were made as dramas. That's what they were thought of as. And yeah, like Kevin said, they were made super cheap. So everyone was trying to make them. That's why there's so many of them. But
right. Yeah. And I think it's definitely a reflection too of the time that they were, you know, kind of made at, because like a lot of classic film noir developed during and after World War II, taking advantage of kind of that like post-war like kind of atmosphere of like anxiety and pessimism and suspicion. And especially when like talking about the women, it's like a lot of it's a commentary softly or pretty harshly on women, because like when men went off to war, obviously they were off at war fighting, and women had to step up and take over the roles in like factories and you know, the day-to-day lives that like, you know, they became mechanics and they became builders and they took over all these jobs, and then the men came back and they were like, excuse me, women, what do you mean you're doing this?
Got no thank yous of any kind.
No, just like, look at these women beguiling us and taking over our jobs at the same time.
Reading?
How dare they?
Yeah. In the transatlantic voice, I love that.
Exactly. And so that's where a lot of those like femme fatales come from, is like that mysterious, subversive, double-crossing, gorgeous, but unloving, predatory, but sweet, but tough.
Good for her.
And of course, they're the ones who are usually the foil.
Oh, yeah. Yep. They're the ones punished in the films. And
either you end up dead or you end up married, and there's no in between. Those are the two places for a woman in film noir.
Create an alternate ending to each film noir where the woman dies. Just give her a happy ending.
Yeah.
Because she was probably right.
Right. I don't think anybody goes into a film noir knowing that or thinking that there's going to be a happy ending. You go in and you're like, I know where this is going to be. Death and sadness. I think Roger Ebert said something along the lines of the most American film genre, because no society could have created a world so full of doom, fate, fear, and betrayal unless it were essentially naive and optimistic.
Rip.
Which I thought was really interesting.
That's really interesting. But no, it is like you said, Cassie, it's born from like the anxiety of World War II. It really fueled how film noir treated how it looked at society and urban society and women. But but yeah, it's been like reinvented as it went on, like especially in the age of postmodernism. We have even female-led noirs, and you know, we've got even noirs that are good for children, like Detective Pikachu. Strangely enough,
Okay, but 10 out of 10, Detective Pikachu,
for
very
sure.
cute.
Yeah. Still the best video game movie. Not sure why it's so hard to make one.
Well, that's because they keep giving it to the same guy.
Paul W. Anderson or whatever.
Yeah, who's married to the girl who
Mia
does
Jovovich.
all of the
So he did the Mortal Kombat movies. He did the Monster Hunter movie, which I still haven't seen yet. What a guy! Mm-hmm. He also did Resident Evil movies too. Weird.
Yes, he did do all the Resident Evil movies. It's like, come on, give us a chance, guys. I know he's done them, but like, what about us?
It doesn't mean they're good.
What about us? Can we make one? I'm just saying.
But yeah. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how film noir ended and where can we see film noir in modern films. Be right back.
Don't you wish there was a pop culture review site that appealed to cinephiles, both professional and casual? Well, look no further than crpwrites.com. New content such as movie and TV reviews, film essays, and more are released every week by writers who crave for movies like every moviegoer craves for popcorn. CRP Writes is dedicated to making sure no one is wasting time or money where they shouldn't be. After all, you have to be able to buy your popcorn and eat it too. crpwrites.com. Casual reviews with purpose since 2018.
Starting a podcast? try a Podbean Unlimited hosting plan. It's what we use here at Committed Critics, giving us the opportunity to have our show on Pandora, iHeartRadio, and even Spotify. You can get your first month of unlimited hosting for free on us by going to podbean.com/committedcrits, just like our Twitter, or by clicking the link in the description. Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. And welcome back to Breaking to Cinema as we continue our talk on film noir. And specifically, how did film noir end? As you can tell, as we said earlier, the 1930s, 40s, and 50s are kind of like golden era of film noir. However, in the 1960s, it started to die out a little bit. The private eye trope waned and started to wane in popularity as the Hollywood market shifted from film noir to the growing popularity of science fiction. Because it's 1950s, sci-fi was started becoming more and more popular in novels. So then the movies started adapting them, and then now in the 60s, just kind of just took over.
Mm-hmm. I think we were also kind of tired of being sad.
Yeah.
Man, how do you get tired of being sad? I do it 24/7.
Big mood, Kev. But it's why the permanently sad, though, start to go towards things that tend to be happier. Because we're like, all right, I need something to be a break from being sad all the time. Mm-hmm. And a little less moral ambiguity, for sure. As well as we also got color film, which was very exciting.
Yes.
And what you're all of a sudden allowed and able to have brightly colored things rather than being stuck in the dark and the black and white.
Yeah, and science fiction kind of helped with that too, with it's all like the super bright space stuff. I was like, oh, this is what the moon might look like, and it's not that, but because we haven't been to the moon yet in the 50s. But it's very science fiction, really, it's with bright colors and very escapism plots, with like low stakes, was kind of really helped get that movement going.
Right.
So that part, film noir died for a little bit, but did it ever come back? Actually, it did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. I guess spoilers. It came back in the 80s or late 70s. But yeah, so we can still see film noir today in modern films. We got Chinatown, Blade Runner, which is combining sci-fi with film noir. Memento from Christopher Nolan, Sin City from Robert Rodriguez, Drive, which was like late 2000s, early 2010s, I think. I don't remember exactly. And of course, Brick from 2005.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's kind of, I think that's where we see a lot of the change, is that you started to see twists on film noir and started seeing some like really interesting genre mashing. Mm-hmm. And so you go from like this really intense, really particular look and style and genre to things that like take elements of that and kind of twist it into other genres, like you were talking about with like sci-fi and science fiction and all that stuff, which again leans towards the optimism that all of a sudden we have, or sometimes the not optimism with things like Alien, which is a very heavily tech noir you could fight for, or also Nightcrawler was a great example of
so good,
like a modern interpretation of film noir.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you, Tiffany, where can we see film noir in modern films?
I love this part about the Addams Family movies from the 90s with and then because it's a comedy movie, right? But they take a lot of little like noir lighting elements, like on Angelica Houston, who plays Morticia, her face, like they do like that eye lighting thing on her when she's like they do that only for her, and it's so cool. And I always get so excited when I watch those movies. I'm like, her little eye, that little eye lighting technique that they do. Yes, that's what it's called. And I just think that is just such a nice little thing that they throw in there. And there's a couple little tidbits in those movies as well, if you pay attention. And it's not a noir movie, but they use all these elements to stylize the film a little more like tethered to the Addams Family, because the original show is in black and white, and it's got a couple noir elements in the show, but it's mostly like it's a sitcom, so it's not super. So they're able like during that time when those movies were coming out, they weren't really able to use those elements in a sitcom show, but they were able to use those elements in the movies, which I think is really cool. Another thing that's a huge, I think is, or at least used to be a huge argument in the film community, is whether or not the Dark Knight series is noir. And you can tell there's a lot of noir inspiration that goes into those movies. I don't really know if I think of them as like true noir movies, but you can definitely see it there. Probably, yeah, for sure. Are they like true modern day noirs? I'm actually not entirely sure, but I think maybe The Dark Knight itself, I think, is the most noir-y out of all three of them.
Right.
Because the first one, Batman Begins, is very like light technique and cinematography, maybe, but it's a lot more of, it's got a lot more slapstick humor in it than I originally remembered. It's very, it doesn't know what it is. And then The Dark Knight is very, knows what it is, has a lot of amazing elements. And then the third one kind of goes off and does his own thing, but still has that very dark, gritty thing to it, which a lot of people really, really like anyways. So
right. I feel like that series was definitely like the change in the superhero genre, because much of the superhero genre prior to that, especially Batman, was lighthearted and was very
cartoony,
based off of the comics and like camp in the best of superhero ways, because that's what the comics were. And then the Dark Knight series kind of took that campiness and brought it to like, instead of the bright colors and the exciting slapstick, it brought it to this kind of like darker noir-y place.
Yes. Also, like the animated series in the 90s helped kind of like solidify it as like a noir, because it's like so Tim Burton did the 80s Batman movies, and he wanted them to be as like dark. He shot it like low light, which he shot himself in the foot with the first movie because it was too dark, so they had to brighten it in post. But then like
don't look great.
Right. But then like the Batman the Animated Series in the 90s was they were actually like and drew it all on black paper instead of a traditional drawing on white paper and then shading it in later. It is putting all the colors in on black paper. So to give it the nice dark noir style. And it was a focus on a sort of a crime drama of sorts. And that's what The Dark Knight kind of like entails, carries with it, except now it's like PG-13. But yeah, no, it's so I do consider The Dark Knight itself to be noir, not so much to the others. The others are they're definitely, they lend themselves more to the comic book style, where it's just kind of like fun and poppy and action packed. I'm thinking about like someone needs to make a meme of Alfred Hitchcock talking to Nolan. It's like, you merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it, molded by it.
Oh my god!
I didn't see color until I was a man.
You know what? Honestly, like, if you think about it, I should like make a video and like compare Bane's voice to Alfred Hitchcock's, because it's not that far off when you think about it.
That's actually true.
I was trying to do, the other day I was trying to do the Grinch voice, and I was just doing a random script and I was just saying it in the Grinch voice, and Brian was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I sound like Bane, don't I?" It was really bad. I was like,
that's hilarious.
Tom Hardy for the next Grinch.
Yeah.
Move over Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah. Right. I will say though, if you are like somebody who's really interested in film and in film noir is a great basis for practicing lighting techniques. Like if you want to go watch some of these film noir movies, notice like the lighting techniques and the cinematography techniques, and like try and see if you can replicate them. Like one of my favorite, if not my favorite, film school assignment that I ever did was like you had to replicate a scene shot for shot and try and match the lighting and the cinematography and the acting things. So then that way you really got an idea of like what it took to make those and like to production design it and to like try and hit that quality level. And I think film noir is a great a really fun genre to experiment and try and do that with. So if you want a homework assignment, find a scene in a film noir and try and replicate the like really intense lighting, especially because like what you were talking about in the beginning, Kevin, of like a lot of it is fairly simple lighting because there's not a lot of like
it's like one or two light in the sources.
Dark areas.
Like
right.
You want your key light to be like, you can get like a cheap Home Depot light, like the metal dome that you just plug in. That you can get like you can either, I think it goes up to like 75 watt regular light bulbs, but if you get like the energy efficient light bulbs, you can go up higher to like 100 or 125 watt without breaking your power or anything. So and then like and then you can have it like go through the blinds and like have the blinds be like a bit of a filter, a scrim, if you will. So you can, and then like you can play around with like you can just literally do a lot of things. Just take a shot from a noir film and see what happens. Because a lot of times, and then especially like Psycho does it a lot when it plays with layers. They have one light on the subject and then another light on like what the thing in the background they want you to see. So that's like a 2, sometimes 3 light setup, but usually it's like 1 or 2 lights gets the job done in film noir.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And it's very deep focus too. So like you want your like aperture to be pretty close. So your light has to be pretty bright to begin with, so you can get everything in focus. But yeah, that's film noir. Really.
You know what? I just thought of something.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, you guys were just talking about like lighting, and Cassie was talking about her project at school. And I just thought of when I was in college, I took an Alfred Hitchcock class, and it was one of my favorite classes in college.
What a fun class.
Oh my God, it was amazing. And me and my friend Haley were in that class, and I remember her group did like a really cool lighting experiment. Like we got to do whatever like project we wanted to. And I wrote a script, and I think my friend Haley's group did a really cool like recreation of Psycho with their lighting and everything. They did a really good job. And some other people did like some cool artwork and stuff for their projects. But my project was a script that focused on making like a really good MacGuffin. And I just remember we haven't talked about MacGuffins, because MacGuffins were basically born out of film noir.
That's true. Yeah, I think
Alfred Hitchcock, technically.
Alfred Hitchcock loves his MacGuffins, but I think one of the identifiers of film noir is that like there's something stolen. Yeah, stolen money or valuables. So something that really brings the plot together and gets it in motion.
Yes, and that has definitely carried throughout the literally every genre of movie has had a MacGuffin.
Right.
I feel like that's...
Yeah, because Alfred Hitchcock loved it. I want to say he coined MacGuffin as well.
I believe he did.
He's the one that put a name to it. He didn't create it. He just put a name to it.
Right. It was always a thing, yeah. And then he was like, I'm going to call it this. And that's what we call it.
And then he became a piece of film history.
And a bar at the AMC movie theaters.
That is true.
Yeah.
Man, so if you want to be famous in film history, find something that hasn't been named yet and then name it and then hope for the best. And there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, so if you ever take up the assignment of making your own film noir scene or shot, you can send it to us on Twitter at Committed Crits. That's COMMITDED_CRITS. This is a Committed Critics show, but don't worry, we're still breaking into cinema. My name's Kevin Lau. You can follow me on Twitter at AuthorKlau. That is AUTHORKLAU.
And I'm Tiffany, and you can read my film reviews at crpwrites.com. That's CRPWRITES.com.
And I'm Cassie, and you can follow me at Cassie's Story, CASSIESSTORY, on Instagram and Twitter.
You can support us on Patreon, linked below in the description. Special thanks to our current patrons, Davey Peppers from Game Mechanics, Ryan Kolakowski from Ryan Plays Drums, and Jody Wright. Special thanks to Zach, who loves the editing, and Jordan for being our sound engineer. And don't forget to watch Contact. We'll be reviewing that in 2 weeks. And we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.